everyone, welcome to week 9 of 20 for 20. So last week we looked at 2 Samuel 11 and looked really closely at the life of David. Well, if David was sitting right here in my house and I could say, ask him a question, I would ask him, what can we learn from you, David? What can we learn from your shortcomings with Bathsheba? And I think he would be very candid and open in telling us we need to safeguard our marriages. We need to put up boundaries and walls to make sure that we as a unit are protected. It's not about legalism or rules or things we can or can't do just for the sake of not doing them and to be rulesy. It's not what it's about. It's about guarding our spouse's heart so closely and being so into them that we're willing to offend and really be prude when it comes to other people. This week, we are really gonna dive into head, heart, and hands. I want you to remember this: head, heart, and hands. Anytime you engage your head, your heart, and your hands into your spouse, you are going to be moving forward. But anytime any one of those things, your hands, your heart, or your head, shifts away from your spouse and onto another person, you are in danger. Big danger. So last week we learned that more than 40% of affairs begin in the workplace. So we need to be vigilant in the workplace. So when Tim first started the path to going through medical school and residency, I immediately envisioned Grey's Anatomy. You know, like sex in the broom closet, sex on the on-call room, girls brushing up against him during procedures, and it freaked me out. It really did, and it caused a lot of insecurity. And the way we dealt with this and still deal with this is we communicate a lot about what takes place in at his work. He spends a lot of time there. We spend more time in the workplace than we do awake at home. So we must be vigilant. Give each other permission to talk about your day. Put in boundaries that are appropriate for your workplace. So one thing for Tim is he interacts with a lot of people. So there's a lot of nurses and a lot of doctors that come in to communicate with him. He makes sure there's a wide open door, that he's never in a situation that puts his head, heart, and hands in compromise or in jeopardy, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to be married. We want to be married till we're old and pruny and wrinkly. The next thing is don't look at other people. Oh my goodness. So there's this Christian saying that says, bounce your eyes, buddy, bounce your eyes. Well, I'm telling you right now, ladies and gentlemen, bounce your eyes. It sounds ridiculous, but we would be totally lying if we didn't acknowledge the fact that God made us smoking hot, right? Women are beautiful and men can be so gorgeous. And so we know when we see a gorgeous man walk by or a smoking hot lady, right? Boobs, butts, hair, lips, eyes, abs, all those things are God-given features that are amazing, right? And they're the things that drew us to our spouse in the first place. So we must guard our heads, which include our eyeballs, against those things, right? So I know that if we're out at the beach, there is pretty much 100% chance there's gonna be a hot woman running by in a swimsuit. I can't get around it, but Tim and I have decided together that when that happens, when there's situations where he or I see someone who we find physically attractive, we're going to look away. Why? Not because we're not gonna acknowledge it, we're not gonna acknowledge it, because you know what? Our heart, our head, and our hands are totally into each other. And we don't have room. We don't want to make room for anybody else. The next thing, social media. I love social media, but I hate social media. Social media is this place, right? This breeding ground of relationships that can be so unhealthy. And it always involves our head, heart, and our hands on social media, right? We're typing, we're visually looking, and our hearts get involved. And there are times on social media that we have to delete people. It's not because you want to be rude, or maybe it is. It's not about you being rude. It's about you protecting your marriage. And if anything is drawing your head, your heart, or your hands, get rid of it. I'm serious. Even if it means deleting your account. But you don't need to be friends with everybody on Facebook. You just don't need to. And old flames, they can find their way to you, right? Anyway. Well, old flames have a place in our life. They do. They absolutely do. At one point, they consumed our head, our hearts, and our hands. And so we have to leave them where they belong, and that's in the past. They have no place in our future or us moving forward in a healthy way. So if they're on your social media, delete them. If they send you a private message, you don't even need to respond. It's okay. The next thing is talk about your spouse all the time, not negatively. Make sure that your head, your heart, and your hands always convey positive, healthy things to other people. Now, that's not to say you don't have safe, healthy friends that you communicate things that you're struggling with, but you need to make sure that those are people that want your marriage to succeed and are going to help you move forward, not move back, right? So, on telling other people, making sure that they know that all the things you love about your spouse, work them into conversation. Talk about your family. Talk about like, oh, I love, if they talk about your favorite chicken recipe, say, I love when Nicole makes chicken. Even if it's not totally your favorite, but find the positive in everything so that that person is like, ugh, I'm not even gonna try to compete with their spouse, because their heart, their head, and their hands are so invested in that person, they don't have time, and I can't compete anyways, right? And the last thing is check your gut. Make sure that you give your spouse permission to say, oh, my gut does not feel good about this person. So Tim and I over 20 years have been in a lot of situations where people are like, Tim, hi, it's been so long, and I'm like, ugh. And we get out to the car and he's like, what? And I'm like, babe, they were totally flirting with you, or, like, or boobs up in your face. It was so, we give each other permission to check each other and say, that's not a good situation. And we trust each other with that. Tim has permission to speak into my life and say, babe, I don't think this is a good situation. I think he's a great guy, but I don't think this is going to end well. And we trust each other. It's not about control or anything like that. It's about loving each other and knowing so deeply how to guard and protect each other's hearts, head, and hands. I'm going to say it again. Head, heart, hand, head, heart, hand. I want this to be so inside of you after this week that everything you do in your marriage is a result of that. Check your head, check your heart, and check your hands. You can check out some resources at NicoleHouse.com. Every marriage is different, right? We know that. But the safeguards and boundaries we can put in place are pretty universal. We all deal with things that involve our head, involve our heart, and involve our hands, right? We need to keep those three things in check and solely on our spouse and not move out of those guidelines. You guys, I am praying for your marriages, and I hope after this week you walk away with one thing. Really, one thing is that I am so going to make sure on a daily basis, every action I do or interaction I have with other people is I'm checking my head, my heart, and my hands. Because at the end of the day, I want to be married to, fill in your spouse's name, until we're old and pruny and gray together. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. Next week we're marching into week 10 and I'm super excited. Have a great week.